Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Naturally Curious. My name is Clayton Law and today I'm joined by Joseph Bogaard. Joseph is a student in the Applied Modeling graduate program and teaching assistant for the Math and Computer Science department. Joseph, how are you today?
Pretty good.
All right, let's just start from the beginning. What were you like when you were in elementary school and high school? Were you into math and computer?
Well, I grew up wanting to be a mathematician, believe it or not, and joke's on me now, really. Grade school was pretty good up until grade 3. We had to move because my parents split up. So we had a different school then. So we went to a different school after that. Well, actually, before that, we were not the greatest kids, let's say that. So we were moving around schools quite a bit. In Coburg, so we moved from Oshawa to Coburg, right? When my parents split. And so Coburg, I wasn't the best in my classes anymore in math. So that changed things around. I had to step up my game, I guess. And so things went downhill from there. Anyway, I ended up getting into university, and then I kind of got my act together again.
Oh, so only after university you've got your act together. Before that, you were kind of just
Well, I'd
messing
say
around.
In high school, I got my math act together, but everything else was kind of mediocre, I would say. I really did well in math, just consistently still. I guess I stopped trying in high school, so I only did... I've only done assignments. I don't really do practice, so that didn't work too well in the sciences, aside from math. If you consider it a science, that's debatable.
It's like you have done the bare minimum of what you consider
to get to university. After that, I kind of stepped it up a little bit. I still don't study, but I do my assignments.
When you were in undergrad, were you a math and computer science student?
I took mathematics with a minor in computing systems here, yes.
So at what point in your undergraduate career that you have decided, all right, I'm going to do a master program, I'm going to do a master degree?
So my last year in my program, I was like, my grades aren't very great. What can I do? So I was like, you know what? Maybe it's possible I would like to do a master's. In order to do a master's, you need a certain grade point average, right? So I decided, you know what? Let's do it. So I took the courses I would usually take, and I just did like extra work on them, and really like I put in a lot of extra effort in those courses, and I wouldn't hand something in unless I was comfortable with that.
Just earlier you said like you still didn't really try for your first couple of years in university.
Yeah, I didn't. I say that with respect to students like previous speaker Kara. I don't put in that much effort into a lot of things. So with respect to other students, I guess I don't try as hard as they do.
But it's interesting how you said, okay, and so by last year you were like, all right, if I want to do this master thing, I have to get my act together. In
my last year, I got it together. Yes.
It's still how did you make up all the GPA that you didn't have?
Oh.
Like, did you have to retake courses?
No. So what I did was, I just, it's not that I studied harder, but I worked harder on assignments. And when you do that, when you put in that extra effort into your assignments, I believe that it kind of shows on the tests as well. Because if you're struggling over a piece of code and it might not work the way you've done it, but you are consistently putting in effort, it should kind of ingrain itself in your mind, I guess.
But so even in the first 3 years when you weren't trying as hard, you still got like a decent grade, because otherwise you'll have to do some like massive catch up for the last year, or have to take one more year just to get your grade up?
Well, yeah, I was passing with about, I guess, 70s.
Okay.
So not great.
Not master program great.
Yeah, wasn't worthy of a master's at that point. Until I showed that I could get grades that were appropriate for this level.
All right, before we talk a little bit more about your master program, I want to talk a little bit about a feeling I have when I study materials that are really abstract, both in the arts and the science. It often takes me, well, because since it's really abstract, it often takes me a lot of time to understand it or even know what it's about. But sometimes I would get, like, if I couldn't just couldn't understand it, I would get really frustrated and think, like, what's the point of this? What's the point of any of this? This is so abstract that it doesn't matter. Do you have that feeling? And if you do, like, when you do, how do you kind of, like, do you have any tips for other students to study topics that are abstract?
That's a good question that many mathematicians have to this day. Often we are dealing with the abstract, and there's a reason for that. Of course, you can generalize it a lot easier when it's the abstract version. The same doesn't work for a concrete example. Of course, you can't generalize a concrete example. So you want to really, to keep yourself motivated, you sometimes can break it down to a concrete example. For example, if you're dealing with sets, you can draw circles to represent these sets. In some cases, you can't. And so you're stuck in this mindset that you have to deal in the abstract, and that's fine. And usually, sometimes it's right? You have to deal in the abstract. So what I do for that is I take some time and I'm like, okay, let's push this aside for a bit and relax for an hour or something. Go for a walk, take care of something else. Really, to take your mind off of it and then come back to it. Actually, for example, when I was taking linear algebra, I fell asleep while doing an assignment with a group. Somehow, the answer came to me when I woke up. So I really dreamt up that one, I guess. It was incredible.
I wish that can happen to me. So really, the real tips for, like, dealing with these kind of like to avoid these what's the point of this trap is to make things concrete. Try to make things concrete, and if it can, just take a break every hour or so, just because your brain is probably fried after reading
if you're staring at something for an hour, then staring at it for another 15 minutes usually doesn't help. Like Einstein said, I can't quote him right now because I don't know the exact thing, but trying the same thing over and over, I believe, is the definition of insanity. So you want to, try something else. So take a break I believe some guy on Reddit said 10 minutes for every hour. Take it off, because you're not going to be doing work for an hour straight anyways, right?
So I have this imagery in my head of what a master program is. I like to think that master students walk into a foggy forest and exploring the unknown with minimal guidance, because some of the things that you guys are doing that your supervisor might not even be, like, totally understand the subject inside out. Am I right in any ways?
Yeah, that's pretty close. I believe it would be more accurate to say you're exploring this foggy forest and you're given some papers, and these papers may or may not be maps to the right direction that you want to go, and sometimes they're not accurate, but you kind of you get a whole bunch of papers and you take the mean sum of them and see what the direction that heads in, and try and explore that area, really.
So I've asked a similar question last episode to Kara and said that, we really don't have, like, unlike in high school, you can find the answer to your exercise or assignment at the back of the book. Like, you don't have that anymore. By around master, where you're doing research, you really don't have the answer. So how do you know that you got it?
Yeah.
Or how do you even, like, it must feel really like dazed. It's kind of like you're here now, find your way out.
you lose the possibility of Googling when
Exactly.
you go to a master's program, and that's a problem, of course. How do you get around that? When you're exploring new territory, I guess the way machine learning would work, if you were the neural network in this case, I believe, you would take 80% of the data of the papers, and you take the other 20%, of course, and I believe 10% of that is taken, not 10% of the 20%, but 10% of the whole data is taken, and that's your testing set, right? And well, you can group your testing set, the whole 20%, however you like it, but use that as your guiding measure, really. So I guess you can do that with the master's program. You take 10 papers, and you're like, well, I'll read 8 of these. If I can read the premises of the next paper and come to the same conclusions, then I must be on the right path.
Sometimes I hear conversation about like, well, is it better to, especially when it comes to PhD, is it better to do a master program / PhD program, or is it better to just start working and get experience? Like, what makes you want to do a master program rather than just not and do something else?
Jump into the workforce. Well, with the mathematics bachelor's of honors, it's kind of rough. It's not directly applicable to most things. Very niche field by itself. But a master's, you can kind of change direction a bit. When you go to jump from your undergrad to your master's, same with your master's to the PhD, they can be completely unrelated. The problem with jumping to the field is I was looking at ads for jobs online, right? And I couldn't really find much that would not require a master's. So that was pretty bleak. So I decided to come back, and I'm like, if I take a master's, it's 2 years. So the opportunity cost of working those 2 years is studying those 2 years. And so you have more qualifications with a master's, if I get that right. I haven't worked with opportunity cost in a while, so I don't know if that's 100% accurate. But in a master's, you kind of, a lot of people I was working with in the government had masters, and so it's directly applicable to most data positions. You can say, hey, I'm not just an average mathematics bachelor's of science with honors. I am a little bit above average masters with a master's, right? It means you can expand your kind of mind to different things. It's more of a statement than what the degree itself actually means.
Okay. So I guess part of the reason why you do the master program is because it's actually more, like, at least when you were thinking, it's beneficial not just in a feeling sense, also in economical sense, I suppose.
Yeah. So working those 2 years, I could get promoted, sure. And it was looking good, actually. But you have more options with the masters, of course, and once you get there, and the 2 years that it costs, I guess, aren't worth that much right now. A PhD, and of course, with 4 years committed to it, would be a lot more. You'd have to look into it more in depth. With a master's, you can just go for it, right?
4 years if you're lucky. PhD.
4 years if you know what you're doing, and you're concrete on your kind of situation.
40 years if you don't know what you want to do.
Yeah, some people are still trying to figure out their thesis. I'm not naming names.
For 8 years straight or something. I don't know. I'm just...
Yeah, of course.
So it wasn't just passion. Like, it's not like one of those, like, I just really want to do a master or PhD. It's not one of those.
Well, it was part of like, I kind of have a passion for teaching. Like, I like seeing my students when they kind of like solve a problem or when they get the answer to something. It's really exciting for even me. I'm not an evil TA. I like it when they kind of solve something and you kind of see that little light bulb pop up. or when they make those connections between different things, it kind of means something to me. And when I was an undergrad, the TAs meant a lot to me. They were always available, and always took their time with their students. And so, like, there's parts of that too. There's other ways to get that experience, I guess, if you wanted to go about that way. But that's important. The work itself, I also wanted time to think. So I didn't want to jump into a career. I was traveling like 2.5 to 3 hours a day to Toronto in the summer. That's not healthy. I don't think a lot of people working downtown Toronto that don't live directly downtown Toronto are in a healthy situation. I think most of them should probably move away and get a job somewhere else if possible. I don't like that structure that they have, I guess. I don't find it acceptable that they spend so much of their lives on their jobs, and it doesn't seem like they have lives. Like, working 40 hours a day, a week. If you want to work 40 hours a day, best of luck to you. Working 8 hours a day and committing 2 hours of that to travel is not a great lifestyle. There's nothing else you can do. You're going to be tired when you get home, unless you're addicted to caffeine, or other alternatives. Not necessarily good alternatives, but it's not healthy. I don't like that whole lifestyle, and I didn't want to get trapped in that, of course.
Can we talk more about your work? Is that
yeah, of course.
Can we talk about okay?
So yeah, I worked at the Ministry of Labor. It was like for the whole summer, and so I was getting positions offered to me at the end of that, because I was done my undergrad. This was I was done my undergrad at that point, so I was kind of free from obligations. I didn't like the lifestyle a lot of people had there. That was the problem. But as far as work I actually did, I was basically like a desktop kind of manager. I set up all the PCs for everyone, and I also had my own work to do on top of that, but I became the IT guy because I was the only one that actually knew what I was doing on the whole floor as far as computers would go. Not that it's a very complicated system, but I mean, that just shows you how your government's being run. I'd redact that if I could, but no, I think a lot of them are competent, but they just don't share that with others because once you do share that, you're kind of stuck in that IT position, and you become,
the IT.
people. Yeah, you become the IT guy, and that's what no one wants to become, really. Once you have your own work to do, right?
So that was. Let me just kind of like
get a time frame.
Get the timeline. So you finished your high school, you did your undergrad here, and then during the summer after your fourth year,
yes,
you worked in the Ministry of Labor
Toronto, yes.
in Toronto, and then right after that you started your master.
Yes.
So when you were working in the Ministry of Labor, did you know you were going to do the master?
I was looking at theoretically, I should have known. Yes, at that timeline. Unfortunately, things don't always go as you planned, and I wasn't sure what I was doing yet, and I wasn't sure if I would get accepted yet. So, effectively, a person made an offer for a master's, and at the beginning of the summer. And I, being the unprepared guy that I am, did not take the offer for a while. Then I came back and I was like, I don't like this Ministry of Labor life. I don't like spending X hours of my days commuting. So I came back and I was like, hey, is that still available?
Remember that offer?
Remember that thing we were talking about there?
3 months ago?
Is that still possible? And do you still have that like an open position, I guess, for a GTA and everything? And so I got in there. It wasn't it didn't work out how I planned it, I guess. If I planned my things better, I guess, given the circumstances, I probably would have done the same. I don't think I would have changed anything as far as that went.
So you kind of almost lucked out a little bit.
Yeah, I got lucky there. I owe a lot of that to some people. Yeah, for sure.
Do you have a plan after master, do you have a plan that you tell other people about after master?
I've been considering a PhD, so I'll definitely apply to probably like 3 places for a PhD. Another consideration is to work in computer science, because I'm pretty good at that. I have a guy working at a place that asked me for some help sometimes.
Okay.
With different programming questions, and I guess I can help him. So, I might be effective there.
Okay. So I guess going back to last episode with Kara, she said like her plan is to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. I myself kind of like sometimes jealous of those people who know what they want to do. Like it's like they kind of like it almost feels like they know what to do when they were 4. Like they really figure out what their end game kind of. Mm-hmm. Like I myself don't have that, and like I suppose you're kind of like that too. Like you're kind of like me, just like still there are many options. And
yeah. You keep you generally what you want to do. Like you know your options, right? And you know what you're not gonna do, of course. Well, at least you think you do. And so you pick from your best choices, and at the time, whatever feels right is what you generally pick, right? So it depends on the person, but I think we all, if we really, really look down to it, we would have a ranked list of where we want to go, mm-hmm. And what we want to do. And we would probably choose appropriately when the time comes, hopefully, given right circumstances.
Yeah. You think like you're not prepared, and then when the time comes, you're prepared. You're just like, oh well.
Yeah,
you just kind of like figure it out towards the end.
Like you got 3 people having like the same answer of 7, and you just got Ohio there. Ohio's not an acceptable answer for a numerical question, of course. But that's what it looks like. And I guess it looks like that because on social media, which I'm not currently on anymore, everyone seems to have their stuff together, right? Mm-hmm. They all have this plan. They're like, oh man, I'm going to go for blank, blank, blank at X university, and it's going to be great. And we're all smiling right now when reality comes in, and like every weekend they're like, oh my God, what the heck am I going to do next year? And they're like, wow, whew. Probably shouldn't have told everyone that I'm going there because I haven't been accepted yet. And so it's really fun though, because you have people that do that, and it's really, I believe facetious is a great word for this, if that's a word. They on the outside they have their plan. On the inside they're like, I don't really have it all figured out yet. But we're gonna work on that, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, when the time comes, you usually have an answer. Okay.
So on the Trent website, it says that your research is on graph theory and combinatorics and the stable marriage problem. How did you, quote unquote, pick these topics?
So in the last year of my undergraduate, we had a course called Math Honors Project, right? Math 4800. And it wasn't offered previously, but because it wasn't in the program. And then within the last 3 years of my program, I believe, one of those 3 years, they added it in, and it was a part of the new curriculum, and so I could fall in between either of the two curriculums at that point, because you're allowed to do that. You can switch in between any of them when you're there at Trent, right? And so I decided to work on the stable marriage problem. The current solutions to the problem, you match N men and N women, right? To make basically relationships. You want the optimal solution, right? So you want to match them with their best matches so that there's no rude couples. You don't want any theoretical cheating with your algorithmic solution. And so I was like, well, that's great. What kind of solutions do we have? And so we have the Gale-Shapley algorithm, which matches all men with their first choice, and then it goes down the line with the men's choices, but it doesn't really have any input on the women until after the men have chosen, right? So, of course, I thought that was unfair, and so I wanted to work on this and see if there was anywhere to go with this problem. Is there anywhere to improve on this Gale-Shapley algorithm solution? And so I decided to do, that was my idea, was to do my thesis on that, if I could find a better solution. Of course, I believe people have been working on that for a while, so I haven't solidified that as my topic, and probably won't. We're probably going to work on something else for my thesis.
How did you decide, or were like, oh, this is interesting enough, or did you pick it because it's hard, because it's everyone else been doing it, or no one else doing it?
Yeah, so there's this relationship between what other people perceive as hard and what you perceive as hard, right? And so you want to find the optimal solution to that as well, I guess. And you also want to find something that seems intuitive to you. For example, I have this reading course with Eris on design theory. I think I've mentioned it before, maybe not. And the answers themselves seem really intuitive. The proofs they make sense to get to their theorems, right? So, yeah.
So you said that you came across the stable marriage problem as you just kind of came across it, and then you obviously you found it interesting enough to do more research in that. Was that like the only reason? Just like, oh, this is really interesting.
It was like, yeah, well, it was really interesting. It's like, he explained this well within like half an hour or so, however long his lecture on that part of the lecture was on, right? So it seemed like, hey, it might be an intuitive spot. Well, of course, math isn't like that. It's always has more to go on, right? I don't know. It seemed like the right thing to do.
What are you working on now?
So currently, I'm looking at simulations and machine learning. So I just read a paper recently on bike sharing models. I read a couple of them on it, and so you build the model, and then you approach it with machine learning and see what you can do as far as solutions go. So you're trying to get the optimal amount of bikes at a certain spot, or the optimal amount of bike spaces. So of course, with every bike, there's a bike rack, right? Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily one-to-one. There's usually more bike racks than bikes, right? Well, it doesn't look that way in Toronto, but that's generally the idea.
Did you have to be a TA since you're a graduate student, or did you like kind of get to choose whether or not you want to be a TA?
Yeah, generally, graduate programs do come with the option of being a TA. So mine came with that as an offer. It comes with a funding package as well, so enough to pay most of the bills.
You said it yourself, and I heard from other people that you enjoyed being a TA. And earlier you said that one of the reasons is because it's satisfying to see that your students are understanding concept that they didn't understand before. Why else do you find being a TA is fun or rewarding?
It's kind of great. Just like, I don't know, I like working with students. They're everyone has their individual personality, and you kind of see how that comes together in the classroom. You see a lot more that you don't see when you're there as a student. So like, how the marks are going, who needs more help, who needs less help, or who can help other students if they're that good. You see all these different gradients here going on, and I think that's really interesting. Not that you treat anyone differently because of their grades, but you know who to help and who to look out for, really. If you have a student that is just going to ignore 3 questions on a quiz, sorry. So if they get 3 marks right on the quiz, then they get their mark, right? In some courses. So some students will just do the first 3, and they're like, that's it. I'm good. I got my mark,
Do the bare minimum.
Yeah. So a lot of people do the bare minimum, and it's like, well, you can talk to them with that, right? So you can be like, well, why don't you try this one? That's not going to help you on a test if you don't know how to do half of the work, right? Or if you don't even attempt half the work and you don't know how it's going to go on a test. So I usually try to encourage them to sit back down and kind of complete the quiz, I guess.
And I guess it's like you said earlier, it's kind of interesting that when you were a student, that all you see is the perspective of a student. And now that you get to experience the same experience, but from a different perspective. So it's kind of like you get a insider scoop.
Yeah.
Kind of fun.
It's really, so it gives you that awkward, that phase between a professor and a student, right? There's these TAs and they're like, well, that's like the next level up, I guess. As a student, you see them and they're like, these guys must know everything in first year. You're like, these guys are great. They know everything. They know how to do it. Then you get to like 4th year and you're like, well, I don't know how my TA did this. I don't know his marking. Maybe it wasn't that great, or maybe you disagree with something, or maybe they don't know the answer to a problem. And so it's like, it gives you this different perspective, right? As a TA. You don't really believe everything you see, and it gives you that different perspective.
What advice can you give to a current undergraduate student who wants to get into a master program?
Try your hardest in your 3rd and 4th years. Look at the different programs. Make sure you want to be a graduate student, and really put in that extra time. And does this always work out for you? Know your area, right? Because you have to choose your supervisor, at least at the start of your program. So, know who you want to work with as a supervisor. Most people, so they go to different universities as their masters. So that's kind of part of the, table of things to look at, right? Mm-hmm. So, you look at different professors in different schools, and the best way to do it is to be as informed as possible on all your possible supervisors. Okay. So you want to be aware of what they have, and like, if they're good professors, do they look good in the field? How many papers have they written? Are they good papers? Who have they worked with? How are they gonna make you look at the end of your degree as a graduate student? But also, focus on yourself within your 3rd and 4th years. You have a lot of work on yourself to do, right? You have to figure out what field you want to work in. That's a lot of different options there as a mathematics student. Because depending on how in depth you go as a graduate student, you will be your whole thing can change, right? It could be less or more applicable to real life situations. So it really depends. You have to really know what you want to do, I guess. And you really want to compare that with life of not being a graduate student, really. I don't think it's that hard to become a graduate student, but you have to know that you want to do it, and you're going to be committed to it, and it's going to take time and effort, and you're going to be looking at, you're going to be at the university for a while, so you want to look at all the students, how the students treat you. You also got to step your clothes game up too. You got to start wearing collared shirts, man. You got to earn that respect by people just visually looking at you, right? You have to earn that position in their eyes, I guess. You got to come dressed up, make yourself look good to the students so that you have that added authority, even though it's really doesn't exist. It just makes you look good. It makes the university look good. It makes you look professional.
Okay. Last episode, I talked to Kara about stress. I want to do the same thing with you. Do you get stressed often?
I get stressed. I don't really feel stress, but it certainly happens. So I don't know how stressed I am at a certain situation unless my head starts heating up, right? I can't really feel that, I guess, as a normal person would if they do. I don't know. I realize I'm stressed when I have I have to do this assignment, and these 2 projects. It's like, well, this feeling of stress, certainly. How do I deal with that? Well, you have to boil it down to one thing. What's the next project due or assignment? Or what's the biggest assignment that is going to be due the soonest, right? That I need to get the most work done on. So that's how I really deal with it. To physically deal with it, you can go for walks, run, jog. Hey, I started working out recently. That worked pretty well. Have a daily workout routine. That really helps it. As a general person, you have to build yourself up so that you're ready for more and more stressful situations. So have your daily routines to make you feel better as a person. Yeah. I work out. If I miss brushing my teeth one night, I'll brush them twice the next day. You have not twice. Well, sorry. The usual is 2 times a day, morning and night, but I'll brush it in the afternoon as well if I miss it the night before.
Is that a metaphor or?
No, that's actually true. Why, is that bad?
No, it's just I've never heard someone that does it if they miss.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Or if I miss my workout routine, sometimes I do 50 push-ups a day, right? If I miss that, sometimes I do it at night, sometimes I do it daytime. It depends, because if I miss that at the night, then I'm like, I was really lazy last night. I'm gonna have to do that this morning. Yeah, so you have your structure and you got to keep to it, and that's a main kind of psychological tactic you can kind of do on yourself. Really, you're gonna get this done whether you like it or not. Okay. You committed to this routine.
Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think when you look at people, every individual person has their own struggles, right? Every single student goes through something differently. Every single professor has different relationships with different people that might, be concerning to them at a certain day. So I don't know. It's important to be kind when possible. Not that you should change yourself to be kind for other people, but when possible, hold the door for someone. It's not like a law. It shouldn't be a law, but hold the door for someone, or ask them how their day is, and not when you say, how are you? Make it actually mean something again. Jeez. If you're just asking someone how they are and you don't care about the answer, then that's not really important, right? It's meaningless. It's just hey, why don't you just say hi? I don't care how you feel. Hi, how's it going? There's different situations for that, of course, but I mean, it's important to actually, look into people and make sure they're okay.
Joe, thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you, and you can find the show notes of this episode on anchor.fm/naturally-curious. And again, thank you very much for being my guest this week.
Anytime.
And until next time, stay curious.